This is Sahar Shunier, human interest photojournalist and founding spokesperson of Stop Non-Consensual Experiments on All World Citizens. Today is November 28th, 2019. There have been multiple attempts to abduct me just in this year, 2019. One conspicuous attempt that I uploaded the photo of from March 21st, 2019 is when I was visiting Albany the most recent time to try to get legitimate government intervention from the state capital of New York there. I'm about to return to try to get their help. New York has recently lifted the statute of limitations for people to file for childhood sexual abuse. In Canada, I believe there's no statute of limitations for people to file for violent crimes against children, including childhood sexual abuse. I was born in Canada, but I've lived most of my life in the States. For as long as I can remember, I've been targeted by a highly shielded network of organized sexual predators and extortioners that target people from as young as they can get their hands on. And they basically have no intention of ever letting their targets go for a consequently abbreviated life in both quality and duration. This apparently overlaps with what people are now finding more and more of, and where there's more and more action being taken with regard to corruption through child protection services, for example. When I was 6 years old, the people believed but not known to be my parents had a major custody battle for me, and there was very strange interest and manipulations by corrupt government parties, plural, for both sides. I did not know it then, but apparently there's a lot of financial and other power incentives, so tangible and intangible incentives for people to get coercive control over others from as young as they can. Frankly, neither parent was fit if the court had been looking to ward my best interest. The father was a documented pedophile in that, not that there were charges filed against him that I'm aware of, but he was well known to have started, quote, dating the person believed to be my mother when she was only 12 and he was 21. My mother has had multiple psychotic breakdowns and has exhibited multiple personalities. I do not blame her. I have a good sense of the kind of abuses that were inflicted upon her deliberately and systematically by this organized predatory network, largely using the person believed but not known to be my father. But I know that she cannot be trusted, and in fact that was the conclusion of the court-appointed psychiatrist, was that she was really just too dangerous toward me to be awarded custody. Interestingly, today, she is a government-contracted neuropsychiatrist with highest intelligence clearances. And she seems to be able to distribute black budget funds to malicious psychological operations group participants to do her bidding to help gain coercive control over me. She and the person believed to be my most recent stepfather, I've had two, were the only consulting psychiatrists for a 24-hour live-in behavior modification facility called Shine and Stars. And behavior modification is the umbrella category for mind control operations, including the partially declassified MKUltra. Tactics include sexual abuse, verbal abuse, drugs, hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, deliberate inflictions of traumas. Basically everything that they can get away with to drive their targets out of our proper minds, so that's the brainwashing, so they can achieve what they call a tabula rasa, an erased slate, so that then they can program in what they want. I personally believe this includes layering what they want spiritually, as in demonic possession. One of the things that happened for that child custody case was that the first stepfather and my mother forced me to pose naked, be photographed naked. It wasn't much posing because I wasn't very cooperative, but to be photographed naked on my stepfather's lap. My mother insisted that that would help the court to feel that I feel comfortable with him, which I did not. He was a known abusive alcoholic. He was also a police officer, and I have heard um, more covertly, like things I wasn't supposed to hear, that he was also an intelligence officer. So that really his work as a police officer was like his front work, but he had more covert work for some intelligence agencies, plural, so it might well have involved treason. He was originally from the United Kingdom and had come to Canada. Something that I did observe is that he was really pocketed. Um, well, I guess one might say he would probably argue if he were around. I don't think he's still alive. I would doubt it. He'd be very old now if he is. He would say that um, it was working undercover, probably, but I mean, he was obviously facilitating organized crime activities. For example, when him and his partner knew that, say, a local store owner was going to be shaken down for money, such as protection payments from vandalism or fires, he and his partner would be right there at the corner of the store on the street, so that should anyone from the store call 911, they would know for a fact that they would be the first responders. And then they would manipulate to either intimidate the store people from filing a police report, or otherwise they would go about the business, the illegitimate business of making sure the report did not go anywhere. Fortunately, I was always blessed with an excellent memory for events that I basically considered puzzle pieces or potentially. And now I'm somewhat embarrassed to say that I am actually almost 50 years old, but at least I finally figured out a critical mass of the puzzle. I have not committed any crimes or done anything to hurt anyone, including the organized criminals individually. I do not make a point of trying to get any particular organized criminal behind bars or what have you. Therefore, I was able to actually tell as a puzzle piece that the fact I've been getting gone after so badly and blatantly and increasingly has to do with the fact as a network they don't like me sharing the conclusions I've been able to reach, the information about how they go about driving people out of ourselves so that they could puppet us. So for maximum puppeting power, that's what it's essentially about, and it's worldwide. They also, as far as I have been able to determine, basically are never give up on their own volition once they decide to target someone. So they have to start being made to face real law enforcement to hold them accountable for all the laws that they've been breaking in order to make this stop. So as recently as my most recent short-term lodging change, 2 days ago on Tuesday, November 26th, there was another setup apparently to abduct me, to drug and abduct me with car arrangements that appear to have been hijacked. I've already gathered some significant evidence as to this. I'm not sure how much more I could gather without unreasonable risk of accelerating their efforts to grab me, in fact. So when tomorrow comes and the government offices are again open, I'm going to try to get them, not for the first time, but I'm going to try to get them to formally and properly start investigating into these matters. I have recordings of these people planning to abduct me at gunpoint. I have recordings, and including audiovisual, of these people pretending to be from FedEx, with men, plural, wearing jackets that said FedEx, but I think they were like cheap counterfeit jackets. They had blue and white. They had no orange or purple. I believe the real FedEx jackets have orange and or purple as well as blue and white. But in any event, they looked like gangbangers, and they did not act like proper FedEx people. So I've dealt with FedEx a lot. I have experience as an office manager among some other hats I've worn professionally, and I thought, one thing that happened was actually they tried the door right beforehand too, and I heard one person say to another, "Oh, the door's locked," and then knock, 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 FedEx, right? So they even made the show afterwards when they realized I was suspicious. They made the show of knocking at another neighbor's door because their story was they had a package to be signed for some other neighbor. Because I told them very clearly I'm not expecting any FedEx deliveries. They said, "Oh, it's to sign for a neighbor." I said, "No neighbor asked me to sign for them, sorry." So then they knocked at another neighbor's door, but as soon as that neighbor opened the door, they said, "Oh, sorry to bother you." So it's all in the recording, because since they got me suspicious by, well, more than suspicious, they got me to know that there was something really wrong when they tried the door before they knocked, claiming to be from FedEx, trying to trick me into opening the door. By the time I approached the door, I was already recording, so I recorded the entire exchange. And I received confirmation from real FedEx people at 1-800-GO-FedEx. I've had the number memorized for years from back in my office manager days. And I got confirmation from them that, you know, those people were not in any kind of official FedEx business. Even though, sadly, the person believed to be my mother has participated in a lot of the attempts to frame me and so forth, for whatever reason, maybe genuinely concerned about the matter or something, I'm not sure, she has admitted on recording that she agreed to be made public. I'll tell you the truth. I've looked up the privacy laws because of the situation, and I've found certain states that are relevant to me, such as Alabama and New York, as to whether I can record covertly. And generally the answer has been yes, potentially with some conditions. But so I have several recordings up where the other party, was not aware that they were being recorded. But this was a situation where she said clearly, she's willing to say publicly what happened in a situation when I was still a teenager and she was working for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. That was a little bit before the P in the acronym. They were just the Centers for Disease Control. And there was a pair of men. A lot of times these organized predators seem to be at least in the pairs, if not in packs. And they claimed and represented themselves to be police officers, NYPD officers, because we were in New York City. And they stopped us for no good or legitimate reason. They started manufacturing a frame-up reason, which was even more scary. They pointed to some guy across the street at a gas station, and they accused us of knowing him, dropping him off or something. We had no idea who that guy was. We hadn't had anything to do with him. And I think they said he had something to do with drugs or something. So I don't know what all they were getting ready to do, but obviously it wasn't good or legitimate. And I suspect they were getting ready to do some sexual assault or assaults. But then they saw my mother's CDC badge, and because she'd been there for a conference, and they hesitated. They looked at each other and kind of were not sure how to proceed, and she took advantage of that hesitation, which was very uncharacteristic of her, actually. She's more been inclined to kind of freeze up and not act about, under that kind of stress, but she took the opportunity to speed away. And so she hit the pedal to the metal and drove us off. And they did not try to follow us. So all of these, if not clear in the very moment when it's hard to think and all, has made clear with the benefit of hindsight that they were not legitimately acting as police officers in any event. Whether they were police officers and were acting in an illegitimate capacity under what they call color of authority, or whether they were just totally impersonating police officers, I don't know. But I'm very concerned because right up to modern times, I'm hearing these stories about the kind of things going on. A young teenager was targeted just a couple of years back. I want to say maybe about 2 years ago. And, a pair of police thought it would be, a fun, cool thing to do to single her out and drive her around in a van and take turns having their way with her sexually, and then to blame her, that, she was asking for it, whatever. So, and apparently they got away with it. The last I read, I can only actually handle so much, at a time of reading these kinds of activities, but, um, but the last I read, they'd basically gotten away with it, you know. Um, some legal officials commented that they were disgusted by um, what had taken place through the criminal, quote, justice system there. But all the same, um, I don't believe they had any kind of prison time or anything like that. And there were a lot of coordinated activities to intimidate her, to shut her up, to assassinate her character, and so forth. Pretty egregious. And I mean, it's kind of surprising to me they'd actually even try all of that, like that they wouldn't think that it would be that transparent. But then again, I guess at the end of the day, if they didn't really have significant consequences, um, you know, then um, they don't see any reason not to be outrageous. I've worked at the Witness Aid Services Unit in the New York District Attorney's Office. I liaised with police officers and their NYPD officers because, for Manhattan County as part of New York City, with assistant district attorneys, with county clerks, with evidence photographers, with judges, to get temporary orders of protection and to get them renewed. And thankfully, most of my interactions with all of these categories, including the police, have been positive. So I'm not somebody who's generally afraid when I see, police around. In fact, oftentimes I feel relieved if I'm walking like alone late at night or something. I generally feel relieved to see them around. I'm not usually thinking that they'd be inclined to be, you know, um, either impersonators or corrupt. But I've had a lot of problems getting real law enforcement intervention against this particular organized predatory network. Now, I have realized that my communications have been hijacked much more than I had realized. I've been posting proof that they've been getting hijacked, but I thought it was like here and there. I really didn't think it was like 100% of the time. And now it seems like it's I don't know for how long that goes, but it's been 100% of the time. So, and that's what happened when I was most recently nearly abducted, um, with the setup where the call I made for a car ride to this hotel apparently was hijacked. So even my follow-up call was hijacked. By that time, it was no surprise. I posted the first follow-up call. I should say follow-up calls. I posted the first one. The second one, um, the first one, the guy just sounds completely rude and uninterested in my safety concerns about trying to tell him what happened. But actually, a very astute friend also caught that when I first asked him, he said the name of the company it's supposed to be. But when I first asked him, is this the car service? And I asked clearly. I listened to this recording a few times to make sure that I didn't just like run it by so fast that he might not have heard me properly. And there was no major noise in the background or anything like that, and I stated it very clearly. And he did not ask me or have any intonation like he didn't hear what I asked him. And so he answered in a very definitive tone, no. Only when I, asked him again did he say yes and proceed from there. So then the next night, the one I still need to process and upload, but all of this takes time and I've been exhausted. But the next one, they ended up telling me that the car that was supposed to come was supposed to be a Toyota, and I was texted and they said that's the car with the license plate that I was texted that was there to pick me up outside the address. Well, um, first of all, when I went out, the license plate did not match at all. So that was one of the first tip-offs that I should not get into the car. And also, I was texted to expect a CHRYSIER. So somebody meant probably to put Chrysler and they misspelled it as, crisis or whatever. And the person I spoke with on the most recent follow-up occasion, yesterday, because basically I spoke with somebody yesterday, I spoke with somebody the day before. I just had to take a break from trying to follow up with them today because the last time they said they were going to check into it a bit more. Um, they said the car was supposed to be a Toyota. That goes with the license plate that I was texted. So I received the same license plate that they were expecting me to be texted, but a different car type, a different car make or manufacturer. Further, the driver would not tell me which service he came from. And he was very rude, and he was insisting that I give him information before he would even tell me what car service he had supposedly been sent by. So all of these are red flags, and I think actually he might not have known what car service he was supposed to have been sent by, because there was a 5-minute turnaround from me making the call and when the car was expected to arrive. So I started suspecting that the organized predators canceled any real arrangement so that they could take over, because apparently that's much of the time how they operate in general and in the way I've been getting targeted. And that first that first evening that I called, it was actually the evening of, was the 26th, Tuesday the 26th, and I called and I spoke with the person who first said no when I asked him if this was the car service. He did say that the request for the ride had been canceled. So that's all very interesting too, and also contradicts the fact that I received a text that said, the car is here. So, if it had been canceled, the car shouldn't have been all the way there, and then, have them, give me a text, and I never did anything to cancel. So I was, in fact, that's part of what got my wheels turning. Well, and they never called me to follow up. They never called to say, hey, where are you? Or why didn't you take the car or something? And I started thinking, these are more red flags that this whole situation is wrong. I am usually very quick to get recordings, for better and for worse. But unfortunately, I wasn't equipped with a body cam on this occasion. Now, it is a well-surveilled street. It's a upper middle class street, and it seemed to me when I was walking by that at least most, if not all of those, some kind of cameras on them, looking out onto the street. So I think surveillance footage can be pulled from those. And also I made a note of the exact time and date and the major avenue that the person then turned onto and the direction he turned onto and so forth. So one of the most concerning things is that he had some kind of toxic inhalant, I'm sure a neurotoxic inhalant, as that's been something they've been going after me with since my first trip to Albany to try to get state government help, October to November of last year, 2018. But I've never seen anything so blatant and conspicuous before, where you could actually see the smoke. There was heavy smoke swirling coming out of this contraption that they had, that was placed on the passenger side vent. So the vent was being used as a distribution system to push that smoke toward the passenger. And I saw that, and there was no way I was getting into that vehicle. It was so conspicuous, I can't imagine that it wasn't also caught on cameras as the car was in a hurry to leave once the driver saw that I was recording. He was quite arrogant when I said I would go, I was going inside, I was going to call the car service. So he expected me to have my communications routed and to just get more of the same, fraudulent activity, interceptions and hijacking of my communications, so that his story would, hold up, the story that he's, that there's nothing wrong with my car ride arrangements, what have you. So, because he waited there, when he knew I was going to make that call. So that was very concerning as well. So that means, I thought I'd worked out finally to get at least a phone, a very basic flip phone, but a phone that wasn't being so interfered with and hacked into. But now I realize that that's also totally compromised and being hijacked, those communications. So only when he saw me recording, he took off. And that in of itself is very telling also, because if he were legitimate and he thought, I was recording with my mobile phone camera. So I could have I was speaking into it to do a narration for the live video, but I could have been just as easily talking to the car service company. And, but apparently even really the risk that I was recording, since I was holding the phone camera up, which really, I could have been holding it up to talk also, um, but that made him just take off. So it's interesting, because why wouldn't he just wait to see, what I come back to say or so. So that it was it was all wrong. And I'm just hoping that finally there will be some real law enforcement interventions so that I can start living a peaceful, legitimate life that I've earned multiple times over. Always having worked very hard and studied very hard and never committed any crimes or hurt anybody. Um, I don't have any personal enemies. Even the person that was assigned as a highly shielded serial rapist to rape me and other scholars similarly situated, I could name him if I want. I've been told my legal rights. He was expelled as a result of this. I don't go around naming him, trying to cause him grief, whatever. I don't even know exactly what his current situation is or what have you. I am concerned, something that legitimate police should check into, that he might have been able to accomplish what he was seeking to accomplish, which was what made me speak up and testify against him in the first place. Was a lot of why was that he was studying to be a child psychiatrist or child psychologist. And he's obviously, networked in with these malicious psychological operations group people that basically are doing all this dirty work for human enslavement and trafficking, organized sexual predators and extortioners. And there's overlap with layers of spider webs of ways they can basically profit illegitimately off of people, and in most harmful ways to the people they're targeting, and to society at large, that include non-consensual human experimentation. And that's why and where I've put my focus, especially on the psychological operations. And that doesn't mean it's limited to screwing with people's brains, minds or so, psyches, and neurologically, physiologically, the brains. But, for example, the sexual assaults is a favorite tactic, apparently, of these organized predators. Very serious physical violence involved. But they largely are doing it for the ability to drive the people out. Like, you will yourself to not be there in the situation, but you're not able to get physically away from the situation. So it seems to give them the opening, both psychologically and spiritually, to have the door open to put what they want in there. So this is a very serious matter, on basically every level, including the spiritual level. And apparently, they don't just dislike me talking about it and helping to raise awareness on it. They really seem like it's so vitally important to them to keep people as clueless as possible in order to help them get away with it. And as long as I'm alive, even hopefully I'll get my own situation smoothed out soon, but so I'm not always in acute endangerment when I need to call a car ride or something. But I, this is, I realize like I feel tapped by God and God's army of angels, and this is something that I now have a good, more than average awareness and insight and experience and all into. And for over a dozen years now, I've been also communicating with multiple people from all over the world about what they have experienced in these regards. And so I'm particularly well equipped now to see and recognize so many of these patterns of the organized predators, tactics, and what have you. And I wanted to do my part to help raise awareness and help on the side of regaining humanity, because these activities cumulatively have been basically robbing people as a whole of our very humanity. And that's not a world that I want for any child I might still have. Even if they're not my biological children, any children in the future, any next generations, and for how many ever years left I have, or how much ever time left I have in my own life, it's not the world I'm willing to be living in as long as I could help to make it better. So please keep me in your